Welcome, everybody. We are so excited to have Chandler Park Academy families joining us tonight. We have a special guest speaker. Please welcome Miss Yolanda Brown-Spidell. Miss Yolanda Brown-Spidell is a mom, parent advocate, educator, and executive director of Eaglets educational consulting firm. She has served in both teacher and administrative roles in Detroit and Metro Detroit for the past 20 years, with 10 of those years in alternative education. She completed her undergraduate studies at Eastern Michigan University in psychology and holds a master's degree from National University in human behavior. She's a certified K-12 administrator and certified trauma and resilience trainer and a Michigan ACE community champion presenter. Her passion is classroom management, and she specializes in facilitating professional developments in the areas of social emotional learning and the whole child, ACEs, trauma-informed resilient focused schools, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. Please welcome Ms. Yolanda Brown-Spidell.
Everyone, good evening to the parents that were with us last month. I'm so glad to see you again. For the parents that are joining us for the first time, we're saying welcome. Again, Chandler Park, I thank you for this invitation. So parents, I'm going to jump right to it. I'm looking forward to sharing a lot of information tonight. Tonight, we're talking about a very interesting topic about defining how our mental health has been impacted by COVID-19 with families, right? So one of the things I want to make sure that I share with you, let me just start clicking through my presentation. So we have a very quick agenda tonight. Again, we want to welcome you. We want to say thank you. I'm going to ask that we use the Q&A portion of the webinar to put your questions in for real time. Parents, I'm going to ask that any questions that you have that do not pertain to the presentation, that you save those to the end because the staff is here and they're available. But questions that are specific to the presentation, I have asked the team if they would interrupt me to ask those questions in real time, because we want to have as much of a robust kind of dialogue in this webinar as possible. I'm going to ask you to please make sure that you have your journal, something to kind of write with handy, because again, I'm hopeful that we're sharing information with you, news you can use, right? Also, if we were there together live, we would have created a working agreement. So our working agreement tonight is going to be three things. We want to be respectful in our dialogue. We want to be responsible with the things that we put into the space. And we want everyone to know that this is a safe space to participate in. Now, again, this is always interesting to me because it's a webinar. So I know you all clicked the Zoom link to get in, but the faces I'm looking at are actually the panelist team. So although this is a webinar, I am still looking forward to hearing from you parents, okay? So please, if there's something that comes up for you during the presentation and you want to ask that question, I'm going to encourage you to please use the Q&A, because the team will interrupt me to have me provide a response. So here's what I know to be true. I am so glad that you are here again. That's important that you came back. I know that you are invested in helping your child and your family. I also know that you are open to learning how to be curious about your child and their school environment. I need us to be mindful to remember that this pandemic has been hard on all of us. There is not a human on the planet that this pandemic has not been a challenge for. So because it's been such a challenge, my word every day is grace. I give grace to myself. I give grace to my children. I give grace to my colleagues. I give grace to the gas station attendant. And I give grace to the grocery store worker, right? Because everybody is got some on their mind. I want you to know that this is a safe space. So there's no such thing as a stupid question, okay? I know that your voices are valuable. And here's what I want every parent to know. I shared this in the last seminar, but I'll share it again. I asked the tech team to let me make sure that you could see the pictures behind me. There are 5 faces in a plate. Now, all of those people, those are my 5 babies. All of those people are high schoolers and college people now. But I am a mom. And the flag behind me is my father, who passed in 2018, and he's a veteran. And my mama passed 2015. Okay. So I need you to know that you are the expert of your experiences. You are the expert about your child. We don't know what we don't know, which is why we're spending this time together. I would like for you to please be kind to yourself and honor your own thoughts and your feelings. And finally, what I know is that we are going to be better people because we spent this time together. So this is 2 of 4. So we're going to continue on our journey. Okay, I hope everyone have a piece of paper because I would like for you to do this exercise, and I'm going to do it for us. When I hear the words mental health, when somebody says your mental health or someone's struggling with their mental health, I want you to put or think about 2 reactions. First, what is your physical reaction when you hear mental health, right? And then I want you to be honest and think about what are the words that actually come to your mind. When somebody, and it was ironic that I'm doing this class right after the Duchess of Sussex is talking about her mental health and all of that with the big Oprah interview. And there has been a lot of variance in the discourse around her disclosing how she felt. So some people were sensitive and were like, "Oh man," and some people were like, "What in the world? Are you kidding me right now?" So what is your physical reaction? Do you roll your eyes? Do you kind of go, "Ah," And what are the words that come to mind? So I want to share this video, and let me see. I think I have to stop sharing for a second. That is the one thing that is Zoom they could have made better, in my opinion, that we didn't have to click out of stuff to share sound. But I want to go into this video of breaking the stigma. Let's see.
You know that feeling where your thoughts scare you or make life tough? Sometimes it feels like no one else in the world has those thoughts or feelings. No one seems to know how difficult it is to deal with your feelings. And it's not easy to share your deepest secrets. You might think something is wrong with you. Or you might worry what other people think. And all of that makes your thoughts and feelings worse. Our culture has created this environment of shame. Until the 1960s, society sent people away if they had challenges managing their thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. Over time, we learned that we didn't have to be afraid. We learned how to help people get better. We became hopeful. But there are remnants of those images in our culture today, which is why some people still feel uncomfortable talking about it. The stigma has taken new forms too. With more access to more people all the time, it can seem like the world is telling us it's not okay to be anything but perfect. The truth is, everyone has thoughts or feelings that can be hard to deal with. So why do we make it so difficult on ourselves by judging others who could be going through the same challenges we are? What if, instead of seeing labels, we saw people who are struggling and could be there for them so they didn't feel so alone? What if we looked past our fear of mental health and started to talk about it in a constructive way? What if, as a society, we used empowering words and healthy images to help people feel supported? Maybe then, more of us could feel comfortable telling others when we're having a hard time. Maybe more people would get the help they need. And maybe one day we won't have to talk separately about mental health and physical health, but just health. The truth is, each of us has the power to change our culture. Will you join us? Share this video with a kid, your neighbor, a friend, and help us break the
So I'm
stigma of
going
mental
to
health.
share that video because I want to have a transparent moment. This is the confessions of your facilitator, right? I always tell people I never present like I'm the end all be all of the beholder of knowledge, right? And I never want to present as if I personally did not have to do the work to address some of the concepts that I am now attempting to share my expertise in. So here's the confessions of your facilitator. That in order to begin to really address mental health, the first part of my own journey was to be honest about how I thought about the idea of what mental health was. So I put my words on paper. I want you to know that there was a time not too long ago when people would talk about mental health, my thing would be, how come they just can't get over it? It's not that deep, because if their pain wasn't as deep as my pain, and if I was able to get over my pain, they ought to be able to get over theirs, right? I used to say, well, people just shouldn't be that weak. Or as a single mom raising 5 kids, I don't have time to be depressed. That ain't no real problem. I got to pay bills. I got to provide for my family. So I don't have time to be depressed. And this is the one you all, Tyler Perry made it famous, but I sure did say it, that Black people don't do therapy, we do Jesus. Okay. So now, having acknowledged that this was how I felt about it, I then had to begin my work and say, well, wait a minute. Mental health is real, and it is impacting the lives of people. So how did I go from being a person who was kind of skeptical about this whole concept of addressing mental health issues and not feeling like it was being mamby-pamby with people, or we were cradling people? What shifted my paradigm? What came into my world that made me go, I may need to actually check how I'm processing this so that I can help my children, I can help my students, and wait a minute, and so I can take better care of myself, right? Well, I'm gonna tell you what changed my mind. It was actual science. So Dan Siegel is a phenomenal, he does a whole bunch of series and videos on the internet talking about adolescent brain development.
The adolescent period is absolutely amazing. People often give it a negative approach, saying, oh, it's a time where adolescents are going to lose their mind, or they're just immature, or raging hormones drive them crazy. These are all not only wrong, but they're myths that mislead us and actually disempower us. Whether we're adults or adolescents, they actually give us the wrong message, and they make it so there's nothing we can do. So what is actually the truth? The truth is that instead of raging hormones, what's happening is we have remodeling in the brain. In ways we never could have predicted, we now understand 2 big things are happening in the brain. Things you as an adult can support adolescents in developing well, and if you're an adolescent, you actually can use this to help your brain grow in an optimal way. What are those 2 things? The brain is pruning itself. So imagine that in childhood, you're growing like a tree and establishing all these branches and all these leaves are growing. In the brain, that means connections among the basic cell, the neuron, called synapses, are being established, and you're soaking in the knowledge of the world, and that's beautiful. The tree is just growing, growing, growing. But then what happens that surprised everyone is the brain begins to prune itself. You start carving away some of those leaves, some of the smaller branches, even some of the larger branches. And the reason for the pruning is to specialize the brain. While the child is developing in ways that are really generalized, learning everything they can about everything they can, an adolescent is going to begin to find their passion, to actually find things they like, things they really love doing, and to drive their development in that way. So pruning is actually a use it or lose it principle underneath it. That if you don't use something, you're gonna lose it. So if you like sports or like dancing or like music, do those things so you continue to establish those circuits. The second thing that happens in the remodeling adolescent brain is myelin formation. Myelin is a healthy sheath that allows connected neurons to communicate with each other in a much more effective way. How? It's 100 times faster, the signal that's sent down a neuron to communicate with another neuron, 100 times faster, and after it fires off, it's 30 times shorter the resting period that happens. 30 times 100 is 3,000. So when you've put down myelin, you've made your neurons communicate 3,000 times more effectively. That's a great thing. Now, the great thing too is that you as an adolescent can actually use the focus of your attention to be aware of your emotions, aware of other people, to be engaging in activities, to be doing things with your thoughts that actually reinforce the parts of your brain you want to hold on to. So the good news about the remodeling story is that a field called neuroplasticity, how the brain responds to experience, shows us that what you do with your mind can change the activity and therefore the structure of your brain. So if you then come up with the statement that the ultimate goal of brain remodeling is to make an integrated brain, to differentiate areas, that's the pruning, and myelinate them, that's the linkage. When you increase differentiation and linkage, you make the brain more integrated. And an integrated brain is the pathway toward well-being. And you can do mind sight exercises. These are exercises that increase insight, empathy, and integration. And if you do them as an adolescent, and you can also do them as an adult, you'll actually increase the integration of your brain as your brain is growing, not just during adolescence, but throughout the lifespan. And what's the outcome of integration? When integration is made visible, it's kindness and compassion. And so what we see through adolescent development is that our relationships become built on connections that are deep and filled with honoring each other's vulnerability, that's kindness, and supporting connections that are compassionate, filled with a sense of caring about other people and wanting to help them. This is the kind of world we can build as we move through life and support each other in our development.
So why did I take the time to show you all that video? Because this was how all of my children have been able to survive me, and I've been able to survive my children. It's this information and this knowledge that, oh, there's something happening in their brain, and I need to slow down and help them process what they're feeling. That has been a game changer, you all, for me and my parenting, because now I know that their mental health and their mental health well-being. So when your teenager or your young person comes in and they got a bad attitude, instead of me getting a bad attitude with them, now I try to check in with my kid, right? We did this when they were 2 and 3 and 4 years old. They would fall out on the floor and have a temper tantrum, right? We responded to the cry when they were first born. You knew, as a new parent, you knew what each cry meant. You knew this meant I was hungry. This meant I just want to be a brat. This meant I'm lonely. So as they get older, those signals don't change. They just differ in how they show themselves. All right. So let's talk about COVID-19 and our family's mental health. What we know is that COVID-19 has brought the conversation about mental health to the front and center. We know that there are many more people dealing with, or they are acknowledging more that they're dealing with depression, that they're dealing with loneliness, that they're dealing with anxiety, and that they are dealing with suicidal ideation, just thoughts of suicide. And this includes our children, right? So, as adults, I'm challenging us today as parents to think about mental health as an overall important conversation that we need to have with ourselves so that we can help the health of our children and our adolescents. All right. Now, I did some amazing research on the Center for Disease Control because they had a lot of information. I'm not going to sit and read these slides to you because I know you can read it, but this one slide I want to bring up and highlight because this, I think, was a huge game changer for me in how I process mental health versus mental disorders. Mental health, the CDC makes a clear distinction between mental health and what mental disorders are. Mental health just means, is your child developmentally hitting the milestones that they should at the age appropriate markers, right? Are they talking? Are they walking? Are they able to critically think? Are they able to? So it's a skill thing, right? Are they able to be sad and bounce back? Are they able to experience something that frustrates them, and are they able to reset? Mental disorders is where we get into things that become diagnostic. And I'm going to speak to the parents because I think part of the challenge is we do not always get a clear differentiation between mental health and mental disorders. All of us want to have good mental health, but when we're not okay and when our children are not okay, I need us as parents to be okay with our kids not being okay. And I'm going to share with you all that one of the things that I've had to come into an understanding of is being comfortable with reaching outside of myself to get the help that I need for my kids to be all right. Okay. All right. Here are some key findings that we know because I want to put some concrete numbers behind why we are having this conversation even about COVID and mental health in our kids in a school context. What we know is that COVID-19 was a challenge for our kids. They were interrupted in their social interactions, not being able to go to school. Sometimes just that breaking that routine kind of just threw them off. Some kids disengaged from learning altogether and just decided, I'm gonna play video games and sleep and eat, and that's all I'm gonna do through COVID, right? And then now, as it's lifting, we got to kind of get our kids back into a pattern and into a flow. So, anxiety and depression, those are the two things among our young people that seriously increased during the time of COVID-19. Okay. So on this screen, I just said, well, let me put up some statistics just to say that they're talking about children between the ages of 3 and 17 years old who are experiencing and who can put into words that they are experiencing anxiety and they are experiencing some depression. Okay. Now, of course, I went to Harvard University, the Center on the Developing Child. And here are the things I want to kind of highlight out of here. And parents, again, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat for me as well while we're entering into this discussion. What we know is that children need healthy and vibrant relationships. That includes relationships with their parents, their caregivers, their relatives, their teachers, and their peers. Having good relationships in these environments help shape a healthy developing brain, and they are protective factors for our kids when it comes to protecting their mental well-being, right? What we know that when we don't address the mental health well-being of our kids, we create these social problems that can talk about failure from completing high school to being incarcerated to homelessness. And if we would just sometimes stop and ask a child, what is going on with you? How do you feel? What's happening with you? We can potentially help save them from acting out and doing things that cause them to get into more complex problems and situations. Okay. So we also know that significant mental health problems can occur and do occur in young children. I think this knowledge alone was a game changer because I'm a high school person, right? I'm a K-12 administrator, but most of my work is in a high school. I knew that teenagers had life stuff going on. You know, you broke up with your boyfriend, you broke up with your girlfriend, you fell out with the mean girls at school. Like I knew they had stuff going on, but I didn't think about the young children and that these mental health issues is impacting them can cause interruptions in their learning, in their socialization, and ultimately in their physical health. This is the thing that I really want to emphasize. Young children respond to and process emotional experiences and traumatic events in ways that are very different from older children and adults. Wow. I think we know somewhere like way back here, I think we know that our children can't process things as adults, but I think we are oftentimes guilty of unrealistically expecting our children to process events like we do, right? So we get frustrated with our kids because we feel like they just ought to be able to handle this, but they're children. My 14-year-old doesn't have the tools of a 50-year-old, right? I know that intellectually, but in the heat of that moment, I think I lose sight of that. That my 16-year-old, he's still 16, and sometimes he does things that are not real bright. And I want to get upset and just like shake him sometimes. But it's like, no, his brain isn't even fully developed yet. So, mom, pull back, woosah, slow down, take a breath, and ask him the question. Okay. All right. The emotional well being of young children is directly tied to the functioning of their caregivers and families in which they live. Can I tell us as parents, our children are learning lessons from us all the time? I said in our last session, some lessons are taught, some lessons are caught. But know that our kids are watching us and we are modeling behaviors for our children all of the time. Our children are our mirrors. You want to know who you are? Look at your babies. I asked my children one time, I said, I want to know, am I as kind as I think I am? And I want y'all to know they told me I wasn't. I was like, really? I think that I'm really a kind person. They're like, nope. Let me tell you, because this, and this. Now, I ain't going to tell y'all all that they told me, but know that I did take their list and I started working on myself. Why? Because our children are our mirrors. They show us who we are. So when our kids feel connected, and it's important that I say feeling connected to the family, even when they want to act like they're distant. Like I've started this thing now where I just walk in my kids' room and hang out with them sometimes. Because, with schedules being crazy and everything, we don't always sit down and do family dinner anymore. So now I have to create experiences where I feel like I'm connecting with my kids. And sometimes that's just what we have to do in order to just kind of check in with our kids and then kind of have our kids check in with us, right? So it's imperative that we put connecting with our children on our radar, okay? Now, as a major result of the pandemic, we know that our kids, their mental health wellness is so important. Trauma has been one of the results of the pandemic. The pandemic has increased stress. So where we would normally kind of just feel stress and then we'd be able to bounce back. And I was sharing this with another group I was talking to earlier today. It seemed like when COVID-19 hit, the idea of death just stayed in the air. When we crossed over that 500,000 Americans who died, I think we're now at like 525,000 people. It seemed like death just hung in the air this year. Every day you were hearing these numbers, even here in Michigan, where we were losing hundreds of people every day. So, man, a lot of us, our stress went through the roof. And if you were saturating in the news, if you were getting hit with COVID because you were concerned about your health or you were concerned about the health of your family, I mean, it was like getting crushed on every side, right? So our families, we were feeling a lot of stress. But here's the thing that sometimes, again, I think I want to challenge us tonight. Just as we were stressed as adults, guess what, families? Our children were also experiencing that same, if not more, level of stress. And you know what the revelation was for me? That our kids worry about us. Our kids ask us, are we okay? And they may not be able to say, hey, mom, are you okay? Hey, grandma, are you okay? Hey, dad, are you okay? But they're looking and they know when they come in the house and that energy is kind of off, they're wondering, hey, are my parents okay? And this adds a level of stress to our children. And again, I want to put this in the space with the parents tonight to just kind of put these things in front of us so that as we're dealing with our kids and we're seeing their behaviors or we're seeing things that we may go, why is my kid acting like this? They may be worrying about us and worrying if we're okay, if our family's okay, are we going to be okay? Because they're hearing these conversations too, right? So,
Miss Wa-
parents, oh, yes, go ahead,
we
Miss
just
Green. I'm sorry.
comment. No, yeah, that's okay. We just have a comment. A parent just commented and said that her son would peek his head in her door just to check on her. I assume during COVID, while they're home, just to make sure that she was okay.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, absolutely. Because they just, a lot is happening. And so they want to just make sure, hey, you good. I have a running joke in my family that if I have a certain time that I have to get up in my house, like when COVID was here, we were all home, right? So if I just decided, oh, this morning I'm really tired, I just want to lay down, my kids would come in my room so much, I just have to get up. It was like, can I sleep in? And they were like, no, we need to make sure. Mom, you feeling okay? We want to make sure you're okay. Are you sad? Are you stressed out? Like they worry about us. And it's being sensitive and aware that yeah, we are on their minds as much as they are on our minds. So thank you for the parent that shared that and put that in the space. So parents, our words do matter. And the question is, what is the message we are sending to our children when they hear us talk about mental health or people with mental health issues? That is so important because if I have a circumstance that happened to me, I'm listening to see where is my safe space. And if I hear you talk about it in a way that doesn't make me feel like I can share, then I'm not going to share because I'm already going through some stuff. And when I'm going through a lot mentally, I want to find a safe space to get that out. I submit to us that our children are looking for the same thing. So, parents, I'm going to challenge us to think about how we talk about mental health things around our children because they want to know, okay, if I share this with mom or dad or grandma or guardian, how are they going to respond to this? Are they going to validate me? Are they going to validate how I'm feeling? Or are they going to call me crazy and tell me, keep it moving? That's very key, very key. So, parents, again, just a reminder our words matter. Our children are listening to us and they internalize our words as judgments about who they are.
Yes. We have another comment.
Yes, ma'am.
It's from Miss Randall, and she says she always corrects people when they use the term crazy, as do I, when discussing people with mental illness.
Yes, thank you. Because our words matter, right? And so if you say, "Oh, you being crazy or you just tripping," that's dismissive and that's, kind of talking down to people and that's devaluing someone's experience, right? It's because we would never say to somebody who's had a heart attack when they tell you their heart is skipping a beat, you crazy or you tripping. We wouldn't say that. We wouldn't say to a cancer patient that when they feel, what's happening with the chemotherapy in their body, you tripping or you crazy. We wouldn't say that. We don't talk about physical ailments like that, right? So likewise, I want to just put this in the space that as parents, we want to be mindful that when we speak to our children, they are internalizing it as who they are. I will share with you guys one of the words that I have really eliminated from my vocabulary. You're a bad kid. I have eliminated bad kids from my vocabulary. And you know why? Because it's not that the child is bad. What are you curious about? I want to know what is happening with you that's making you act this way, right? So there are things, and let me also say this, parents, no judgment, no heat, but I'm gonna throw this out here because it's Miss Spidell, and that's what I do. I don't cuss my children out. I do not cuss my kids out because I don't want to normalize for my children that that is the way that they're supposed to be spoken to. So my oldest daughter, she's hilarious to me because she actually has a visceral reaction when people start swearing around her because it's just not the language of our home, right? Because I knew that my words had weight and power And I wanted to just be mindful. When I'm angry, I tell my children, I'm mad. I don't want to talk about this right now because I'm not sure what I'm going to say. So I'm going to take a mama time out and I'm not going to address this right now until I can process how I want to say this to you. Sometimes as parents, we got to give ourselves permission to like step back from a thing, especially when we mad about something. We got to just hit that pause button in our house and go, I'm not talking about this right now because I know if I talk about it right now, I'm going to say something that's going to really hurt your feelings because we're people too. So we need to hit pause and then pick that up later. Why? Because our words have power. Words are free, but it's how you use them that may cost you. Okay. Just a reminder, behavior is communication. Our children, our colleagues, our bosses, our supervisors, the person at the grocery store, the guy who flipped the finger that drove around you real fast, right? On the freeway. Behavior is communication. What is the emotion that our children are trying to communicate to us through their behavior? Man, that's a way different way of looking at how our kids are acting. That's a different way of looking at how our colleagues and how grown people are reacting. I am learning. I haven't mastered it yet, you all. I'm working on it every day, every day, every day. I'm working on how to divest my ego. So when I engage with people and they kind of go off or clock out on me, I have to learn how to not have that clap back. I picked that word up from my high schoolers. So I can't clap back at people, right? I'm learning how not to clap back. I'm learning how to go, woo, okay, what are you really trying to communicate to me? You mad about something, you hurt about something, you offended about something, and you don't know how to say I'm angry, I'm hurt, or I'm offended. So it just come off like, ugh. Okay, let me let you get all that out, and then let's prepare to talk. So behavior is communication. Two behaviors I've highlighted in the presentation, and I wanted to go back just to give a little technical component to. What is anxiety? Anxiety is when there are so many fears and worries that they interfere with our everyday life. They cripple us. It's all right to have fear, but it's not okay to have that crippling fear. That's when we know we need to talk about it. So anxiety is that thing that we all feel at times, that thing that make you nervous, make you feel like you got butterflies in your stomach, make you go, ooh. But if that is interfering with your everyday activity or your child's everyday activity, then that's when we know we may need some help. Anxiety may present as fear or worry, but can also make children irritable and angry. They don't know how to say I'm afraid, but they know how to show I'm mad, right? So I listed on this slide different ways that anxiety may show up when babies are very small. I use this example. It probably is not applicable here, but it makes the point. When my children were in daycare, they couldn't tell time, but they somehow knew what time I was supposed to show up at the daycare, right? And if I wasn't there, that caused them anxiety because where mom at? She's supposed to be here by now, right? I would venture to say that we create patterns in our homes and ways of being, and that our children begin to expect us to be a certain way, so that when we break patterns, then they go, well, what's up with her? Or what's up with him? Right? And if we break patterns too often, that can make our children feel like things aren't very stable. And that can make their anxiety go high because they never know what's next. So, this is one of the reasons why we say to parents with young children, have a routine. Routines decrease anxiety, right? Even in adults, have a routine, have something that we know this is what's coming next. Because when I can kind of anticipate what's going to happen, it takes away that fear of what's going to happen next, right? So, being afraid, having extreme fear about a specific thing, being afraid of school or other places where people are, worried about your future and bad things happening. COVID-19 has heightened that because, again, death was just always in the air. Now, depression, I just wanted to highlight that there are some children feel sad or uninterested in things that they used to enjoy, or feel helpless or hopeless in situations they are able to change. When children feel persistent sadness and hopelessness, they may be diagnosed with depression. And then here's the statistic that got me. For youth ages 10 to 24, suicide is among the leading causes of death. My goodness. When people feel helpless or hopeless for a prolonged length of time, that's when we start talking about depression. That's why it is imperative that we create a space that when children say, I'm sad about something, that they are comfortable saying, I'm sad, so we can help them not get over the sadness, but to work through the sadness, right? I don't know how many of our kids, families that are presented, your families have suffered actual loss. When my father passed, because we lived with my mom and my dad, when my mom passed, my children had an opportunity to grieve because my dad was there to support my kids. But when my father passed, my children really struggled with this. But can I tell you guys, I was not there for my children because I was in my own grief, right? So I missed a lot. And I did not create the space for my children to even talk to me about the death of my father until we were all in lockdown during COVID. I'll never forget that. We were sitting around the table and they were talking about grandpa, grandpa, grandpa. And I realized that in 2 years, that was the first time we ever talked about the sadness that we felt in the loss of my dad for my family. And so I had to apologize to my children because I was in my own grief and I was trying very hard to just keep my head above water, right? Because I'm a single mom, so I got to keep it moving. But I failed to create a space for my children to be able to acknowledge and process their own feelings. And that had an impact on all 5 of my children's mental health. So this is why I do this work, because I know it to be the truth. I know it to be necessary. I know it to be real. So some examples of behaviors that are often seen in children with depression: they feel sad, hopeless, and irritable a lot of the time. They don't want to do anything fun. Their patterns are changing: how they eat, how they sleep, their energy level. They have a hard time focusing and paying attention, and that will show up at school. They feel worthless or useless or guilty. And some of our children who are depressed actually start doing self-injury, cutting themselves, or self-destructive behaviors, drugs, sex, and drinking, right? Because they're trying to numb the pain. All right. So, wow, Yolanda, you did all that and took us way down. Jeez. All right, but I ain't gonna leave you like a people with no hope. Let's look at our toolbox. We got some stuff that's gonna help us with our children. Healthy ways for us to cope with stress. We want to take breaks from watching TV, reading, or listening to news stories. For some people, we cannot handle being saturated in this stuff 24/7, right? We want to take care of our bodies. We want to take deep breaths. We want to stretch. We want to meditate. We want to eat right. We want to exercise. And this is the thing I've said to every group that I talk to: sleep is a necessity. When our bodies are resting and we are sleeping and hitting that REM sleep, sleep is the thing that has been given to our bodies to naturally heal. We gotta go to bed.
Miss Spidell, interrupt you right
Yes,
quick?
ma'am. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, we have a comment by a parent, an attendee. They said, my 5-year-old taught me a very powerful lesson. Prior to the pandemic, I never worked from home. When I was home, that was time for my family. But working remotely during the pandemic, when my son wanted to play, I told him, wait, just give me time. Then we will play. I would never stop working. All the while, I talked to him. He began to act out, and of course, I would stop working immediately to address this issue. He learned that if I want daddy to stop working, I have to do something bad. I had to check myself.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that because listen, any attention, good or bad, attention is attention, right? And so, and that's the thing about these little children. They are so smart. They figure out, okay, let me see what the pattern is. And parents, let me say this. I ain't talking about nobody. I'm gonna just talk about me. We teach our children, we even teach our children how to treat us, right? So they figure out what our patterns are and go, oh, this is what I have to do to get what I want. Okay, get it, got it, good. So, Ms. Green, thank you for sharing that and putting that into space. And to the dad who shared that, thank you so much. All right, you all, time is getting away from us. So let me just move through this. I think you guys, the slide was up here. And again, I know the school has a copy of this for you all to inquire more if you would like. I just want to remind us another tool in our tool set is to ask questions versus making assumptions. I want to encourage us as parents to slow down and ask the question, what is going on with our kids versus making assumptions that they are just getting on my nerve or they're just doing this to irritate me, right? That's another tool set. I want us to remember, and this is so key, our children are people too. I think we have lost sight of that they are thinking, feeling, emotional beings. And they are people too. So just like if I wouldn't do this with my friend, I'm not going to do it to my kids. My children are worthy of getting the respect that I give everybody else in the spaces that I occupy. And that's a work. That is a work. All right. I had another activity, but again, time got away from us. I don't know where it went. But I want to I think it was just on this slide. What are the three words that stand out to you when we talk about being kind to our children? And I know kindness is the big word that I highlighted, but I tell you, my words were compassion, my word was affection, and my word was courtesy. I want to be kind to my children. I want to be compassionate with my children, and I want to be courteous to my children, right? Okay, conclusion. It was supposed to be an open mic, but I think parents, you all were putting things in the Q&A and in the chat. And so in preparation for the next part of our journey together, I know that there will be a evaluation that is going to go out. So I know someone on the team is going to speak to that. Parents, I'm going to ask you if you would please, ma'am and sir, please take a few seconds to fill out that evaluation because I want to make sure that this time we're spending together is valuable to you and that I'm talking about topics that matter to you or answering questions that you may have that is within my wheelhouse to answer. So parents, I'm going to ask if you would please take a few seconds when that survey code, that evaluation comes out, because I get better by hearing your comments, right? This is how I become a better facilitator, by knowing, did I cover the information that you want to have access to? So please, if you would, make sure that you fill those evaluations out because next month we'll be talking about actual impacts of trauma in children. And finally, I always want to end on a positive note. As parents, I want you to always remind yourself we do the best we can with what we have and what we know at that time. All right. Are there any questions, any comments, anything from the team, anything I missed out of the chat? And if not, Chandler Park, we are back in your hands.
Thank you. So I just want to say finally again, thank you for the parents that came out to support your children and the students of CPA, as well as our presenter, Ms. Yolanda Brown-Spidell. Thank you again for the wonderful presentation. Parents, I hope that you can take away some valuable information from the webinar from tonight. I enjoyed it myself personally, Ms. Spidell. And again, I wanted to just circle back around family. Well, yeah, we're family because we take care of all the kids, so we're family. To please complete the survey and give back honest feedback to Ms. Bidell. so that she can again improve. She can speak directly to what it is that the families here at CPA need to support their children, and that we can continue to help support you and the students here at Chandler Park Academy, as well as you will complete the survey. At that time, you will be entered into a raffle to win a gift card. So,
Excuse me,
if
Ms. Green. There is
mhm.
another question in the chat box from a parent.
Yep, I was going. Yep, I was going to it.
Yeah.
I just want to finish. How do you, Ms. Alfred said, how do you probe a student who only says, I don't know?
I don't let them get away with saying, I don't know. I always say, I know you know, but let's sit down and let's take some time to think about it. And then I start asking the why questions. Well, why was this okay? What was it that made this all right for you to do? Or, so I do, they don't know why they are missing schoolwork. Well, I think my conversation with them would be, okay, you're missing schoolwork. So what is our objective? What's happening with us where we're not able to do it? Is it that we're not able to complete it? Are we struggling with the assignment? Or do you have enough time to be able to complete the assignment? Okay, okay. So Miss Alfred, I guess what I'm gonna say is this. Then I would start doing the probing. I would just why? And I'm gonna tell you as a parent, this is a challenge to do because it takes so much patience. It takes so much patience, but it is a training that we do. I do it with myself to slow down and go, okay, so why is it that we didn't get this done? And I just have to pause and I wait. So I try very hard not to allow my children to tell me why not. You got to be able to explain this because you got to make it make sense. So I hope that helps. It's really that curious mindset and that continual probing of why.
Ms. Spidell, can I add to that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. As a social worker, it's hard for me not to respond. Sometimes you have to let your child know the intent behind your questions. Let them know, I'm concerned, or I'm afraid that if you don't do your schoolwork, you're not going to pass the class or you're going to get behind. So sometimes, as our kids get older, they need to understand why. And I think I said it last month. Sometimes as parents, we get in the habit of just saying, do things because I told you. But as they get older, and these children are a little different than we were, they need more of a dialogue and some understanding. So sometimes they need to know why it's important to you. Why are you asking them?
Yes, that is true. And we have another comment here from Ms. Richardson. It says sometimes children aren't able to articulate the I don't know because most times children are not able to use their voice and more than explaining themselves during questionable behavior, excuse me. And I just want to say, yeah, like I believe that is true, specifically going back to the African American families. We're always taught that children are seen, not heard. Um, and parent adults are always right. So I think sometimes if a kid is coming from that type of upbringing, um, or around adults like that, when they're asked what are they thinking and how they're feeling, they are not able to articulate it because they're not used to being able to articulate how they feel. And so sometimes they don't even recognize those feelings even when they are asked.
I completely concur. And
Yes.
parents, I thank you because these were great questions. Wow, and we are at 6 o'clock. So, Miss Green, thank you so much, Miss Rice. Miss Green, did you want to close us out, or was that our close? Or
No, I will close this out. Just wanted to finish to make sure there was no more questions and you were complete. Again, family, friends, parents, staff, thank you again, Ms. Spidell, for putting on this presentation for CPA family, students, parents, and parents, please, if you have not already completed the survey, and you will be entered into a raffle. And again, not only that, it is to further assist you in the students in anything that you may need with your families. So I hope you all have a good night.